You ever have one of those days that feels so normal, it almost becomes suspicious in hindsight? That was my Tuesday. I got up a little later than usual because the dog, Murphy, decided not to bark at the recycling truck like he usually does. Claire had already made coffee. She always made it just strong enough to remind me she hated how I brewed it. We had that kind of rhythm, love-laced with minor annoyances. The kitchen smelled like vanilla creamer and toast. She had that cardigan on, the one she wore when she was trying to be cozy but not too cozy. The house was warm, the dishwasher was humming, and the sun came in through the windows like it was trying to kiss every inch of the hardwood. We had lived in this house for 8 years, built it up together, painted the cabinets ourselves, argued over backsplash tile, chose comfort over style every time. I poured my second cup and sat at the table scrolling through emails on my phone. Claire was folding laundry in the living room, humming something off-key. I remember thinking how nice it all was. How rare peace felt these days. How, after 12 years together, we had our own quiet little ecosystem. A life built on routines, eye rolls, occasional hugs, and Costco runs. It's strange what your brain decides to hold on to. I glanced up and saw something small, something stupid, really. A charger cable. It was white, frayed at the end, and plugged into the wall near the console table. But the thing was, it wasn't mine. And it definitely wasn't Claire's. That one tiny thing, a cable I didn't recognize, was all it took. It's wild how fast your brain can flip from cozy to suspicious. Like a switch you didn't know existed until it's pressed. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I just stared at that cable and sipped my coffee like nothing had happened. But inside, a door had opened. One I couldn't shut. I told myself it could have been anything. A guest? A neighbor? Maybe Claire bought a new charger and just didn't mention it. Happens all the time, right? But the thing is, Claire doesn't buy tech stuff. Not without asking me first. Not because she needs permission, she just never cared enough. I was the which one do I need guy. Is this USB-C or the other one guy? So yeah, it was odd. I walked past the charger like it wasn't burning a hole in my brain, and I went upstairs to grab my work laptop. That's when I noticed something else. The bed was made. Now I know, sounds dumb, but Claire never makes the bed when I'm the last one out. It's always this passive-aggressive standoff we have. I leave it messy, she leaves it messy, and it sits there like a wrinkled monument to our mutual stubbornness. But today, it was tucked in military tight, pillows fluffed, comforter aligned like it was staged for a magazine shoot. That's when my stomach started doing this slow, low tumble. And I hate that feeling, like you're 2 steps behind something you don't even know you're chasing yet. I stood there for a second, taking in the room. Same walls, same dresser, same photos on the nightstand, me, her, and my idiot half-brother Mark on a fishing trip 3 summers ago. We looked like a happy family in that picture. Claire loved that trip. Or so I thought. I don't know why Mark popped into my head right then. Maybe it was the photo. Maybe it was something else. But I remember thinking, it's been a while since I heard from him. I shook it off, took my laptop, gave Murphy a scratch behind the ears, and headed out for work. But that charger cable? That bed? That gnawing little voice in my head? They came with me. On the drive to work, I kept circling back to that charger. The way it curled up near the wall like it belonged there. Like it had lived there long enough to get comfortable. I told myself I was overthinking. I mean, it's a cable. It's not lipstick on a collar or a hotel receipt. But it's funny how something that small can wedge itself into your brain and start turning screws. At the shop, I went through the motions, checked inventory, answered emails, cracked a couple jokes with the guys. But my mind kept drifting. Not just to the charger, but to Claire. To us. We used to be good. Not fireworks and rom-coms, but real. Like, hold hands in the grocery store real. She used to laugh at my dumb impressions, and I used to sneak her favorite candy into her purse when she was having a rough day. But lately, we become roommates. Nice ones, polite ones. We still watch the same shows, still texted grocery lists. But the spark? It had fizzled so quietly I didn't even notice until I was standing there in our bedroom wondering who the hell tucked in the bed. I started thinking about Mark again. My half-brother. Same dad, different moms. Grew up mostly apart, but we got close in our 20s. He's one of those guys who makes you laugh even when you're mad. Charming. Loud. Gets away with everything. Claire always liked him. Said he had a good energy. Back then, I thought nothing of it. Why would I? He was family. He was safe. Now, I wasn't so sure. I pulled up my security camera feed on my phone. We'd installed a couple cameras out front, and in the garage last year after some neighborhood break-ins. I hadn't checked them in weeks. And there it was. Plain as day. 3 days ago, while I was working late, a car pulled into our driveway around 9:47 p.m. Mark's car. I stared at the screen, frozen. Watched him walk to the front door. Watched it open. Watched him go inside like he'd done it 100 times. And then, nothing. No footage of him leaving. Not that night, anyway. I didn't even realize my coffee had gone cold until I picked it up and tasted the bitterness. The charger. The bed. The visit. Something was off. And I was done pretending otherwise. I didn't sleep much that night. Or at all, really. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the fan doing nothing to quiet the noise in my head. There's this point where suspicion turns into something more, like you're no longer wondering if you're being lied to, just trying to figure out how long it's been happening. That's where I was. At 3:14 a.m., I got out of bed and sat at the kitchen table. The same spot I drank my morning coffee in just 24 hours earlier, back when the biggest thing on my mind was whether I remembered to pay the water bill. Funny how fast your world can tilt. I opened my laptop and started going back through old photos. Family parties. Backyard BBQs. Holidays. Mark was in a lot of them. I'd never noticed how often he stood next to Claire. How many private little smiles they seemed to share when they thought no one was looking. I clicked on one from my birthday 2 years ago. She's holding the cake. He's behind her, just a little too close. I zoomed in. His hands on the counter, but almost touching her waist. Almost. Back then, I would have thought nothing of it. But now? It made my skin crawl. I dug deeper. Searched my phone for texts. Mark and I hadn't messaged much lately. Used to be weekly. Now it was every few months. And Claire? I checked her phone bill online. Saw a number pop up repeatedly that wasn't one of mine. Mark's number. Midnight calls. Midday texts. Sundays. Tuesdays. Thursdays. Days I was working late. I leaned back in the chair and exhaled slow. There it was. Not a smoking gun. Not yet. But a trail of breadcrumbs that all led in one direction. I was being played. By my wife. In my own blood. It wasn't rage I felt right then. Not yet. Just a quiet kind of devastation. Like I'd stepped on a crack in the ice, and everything beneath me had started to give way. I've always believed that if something doesn't sit right in your gut, it's probably for a reason. And I don't mean paranoia or jealousy. I mean that deep, lizard brain instinct that tells you when you're being lied to. So I started watching. I didn't confront Claire. Didn't accuse her. I just started paying attention. She didn't notice at first. That's the thing about cheaters. They get sloppy when they think they fooled you. And I had played my part so well, even I was convinced a few weeks ago that everything was normal. But now, every late-night walk she took to clear her head, every time she said she was running errands but came back with nothing, every time she smiled a little too much at her phone, it all registered. She started wearing perfume again. Not the one I used to buy her, a new one. Stronger. Sweeter. She'd spray it on before going to yoga. She hadn't been to yoga in 3 months. I checked the laundry basket one night. I don't know what I was hoping to find, maybe a clue, maybe nothing. But sure enough, there were clothes that smelled like cologne. Not mine. Not anything I've ever worn. It was weird, the mix of feelings I had. I wasn't furious. I wasn't even hurt the way I thought I'd be. I just felt numb. Like I had already started separating myself from her, emotionally. Piece by piece. I pulled up my browser and started researching how to pull data from our home router. It logs every connected device. Every site visited. Turns out, Claire's phone had been accessing apps and messaging sites she hadn't mentioned in years. Snapchat. Telegram. Signal. Private. Disappearing. Encrypted. Of course. I started writing everything down, dates, times, messages, camera footage. Not because I wanted revenge. Not yet. But because I needed to know. I needed to make sure I wasn't just inventing this narrative in my head. And the more I saw, the clearer it became. I was living with a stranger. Sleeping beside someone I didn't really know anymore. And I was starting to realize that maybe I never really had. I don't know when it first crossed my mind that it could be him. Maybe it was the charger. Maybe the bed. Maybe that quiet instinct that starts whispering before your brain catches up. But once the thought entered my head, it didn't leave. Mark. My own half-brother. He'd always been the golden child in the family, the charming one, the one with the crooked smile and just enough bad luck to make him interesting. People forgave him things. He was the guy who borrowed money and forgot to pay it back. Who crashed on your couch and left pizza crust in the cushions. who always called you bro when he needed something. But I never thought he'd do this. Then again, I guess betrayal doesn't need to come from the shadows. Sometimes it walks right through the front door, asks for a beer, and sleeps in your guest room. I started going back through old messages. There weren't many. Mark was the poppin' type, never big on texting. But the timeline was strange. His visits had ramped up about a year ago. He started stopping by more often, usually when I was working overtime. Once or twice I came home to find him and Claire sitting in the living room, laughing at some inside joke. I never thought much of it. Why would I? He was family. But now, I couldn't stop thinking about all the times he was just around. About how she used to light up when he showed up, how her mood would shift for days after he left. I had chalked it up to family comfort, some kind of harmless affection. Now I wondered how long I'd been the third wheel in my own marriage. I found a bank charge in our statements from a roadside motel, small, cheap, and about 15 minutes from town. It wasn't in her name, of course, but it was close enough to a gas station I knew she'd stopped at that day. And Mark? He texted me earlier that week saying he was crashing with a friend in town. Said he'd catch me next time. I didn't connect the dots then. But now? Now I was connecting everything. And the picture I was building looked a lot like betrayal in high definition. I started playing dumb. Real dumb. Like I didn't know a thing. Like I hadn't seen the charger, or the bed, or Mark's car on the camera. Like I hadn't stayed up until 2 a.m. reading cell tower pings and pulling receipts. I kissed her cheek in the morning, asked about her day, laughed at her jokes. Gave her space, just like she wanted. And she took it. Because here's the thing about people who cheat. They think they're smarter than you. They think they're pulling off some high-wire act, when really, they're just juggling knives with their eyes closed. And me? I was done catching the blades for them. I started planting little conversational seeds. Hey, have you talked to Mark lately? Stuff like that. Casually. Like I wasn't watching every twitch in her eye when I said his name. She played it cool at first. Said she hadn't seen him in a while. That he was busy, off doing whatever it is he does. But later that night, I saw her delete a string of messages on her phone. Thought I wasn't looking. That confirmed it. So I leaned in. I told her I might have to work late on Friday. Big project. Lots of overtime. She barely blinked. Almost looked relieved. I left the house at 5 p.m., drove 3 blocks, then parked behind a strip mall and waited. At 5:47 p.m., she left the house, hair done, makeup perfect, wearing the same red jacket she used to only pull out for date nights. By 6:12, I watched Mark pull into the driveway. No hesitation. No looking over his shoulder. He got out of the car, walked right in through the front door like he owned the place. Like it was his home. I sat there, watching the live feed on my phone, feeling something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. This was real. This was happening. And I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. I used to think I'd lose my mind if I ever caught someone cheating on me. That I'd scream, punch a wall, maybe pack a bag and disappear for a while. But when it actually happened, I didn't do any of that. I took notes. I don't mean metaphorically. I actually bought a small notebook from a gas station, wrote house stuff on the front, and started logging everything. Times, dates, what she wore, when Mark showed up, how long he stayed, what door they used. I even noted which lights turned on in the house, which gave me a decent sense of what room they were in. The garage cam picked up Mark's car license plate clearly. My phone's screen recording feature captured the home security app feed. I archived deleted texts from our shared phone plan. Cross-referenced timestamps. Looked up legal forums in my state to see what kind of evidence held weight in court. Cold? Maybe. But I had to be. Because once you've been betrayed by the 2 people you trusted most, you either shut down or you sharpen up. I started pretending I had plans. Told Claire I was working out, meeting friends, fixing things at the shop. Gave her room to move freely, because that's when people show their true patterns. And she did. Mark came by 3 more times that week. Always after dark. Never stayed the night, not yet, but long enough. One night, I left my truck in the shop parking lot and took a cab home. Walked the last few blocks in silence. I stood outside, just past the hedges, watching through the living room window. She was curled up on the couch in her favorite blanket. His hoodie was in her lap. Mark sat beside her like he belonged there. Like it was his life now. And Claire, she didn't look guilty. She looked happy. That hit harder than anything else. I don't know what flipped the switch. Maybe it was seeing Mark's hoodie on her lap. Maybe it was how she laughed with him, that real laugh I hadn't heard in months, the kind that used to be mine. Whatever it was, something shifted. I wasn't sad anymore. I was focused. That weekend, I backed up everything, photos, videos, browser histories, call logs onto a flash drive and locked it in my toolbox at work. I scanned the notebook pages and emailed them to myself from a burner email, just in case something accidentally got deleted later. I wasn't planning revenge. This wasn't some dramatic, movie-style takedown. This was insurance. Because if they were going to lie to my face and destroy my marriage behind my back, the least I could do was make sure they didn't get to walk away with my house, my money, or the last shreds of my dignity. I started sleeping in the guest room. Claire didn't ask why. She barely even noticed. Just said something about my snoring and rolled over. I stopped cooking dinner, ate late at the shop or grabbed fast food. Didn't even leave dishes in the sink. I was erasing my presence one habit at a time. The weird part? She seemed fine with it. Like she was relieved. And Mark? That coward didn't even try to face me. He only came around when I was gone, which told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't bold. He was opportunistic. I could have confronted them right then, kicked in the front door and demanded answers. But honestly, I didn't want their excuses. I didn't want apologies. I wanted the upper hand. And I was getting close. The thing about knowing a secret is you start to control the story. You know the beats before they hit. You can make people dance without them even realizing the music's changed. I was done playing defense, so I started laying traps. One night, I left my jacket draped over a dining chair, and inside the pocket, a voice recorder. One of those cheap digital ones you can get off Amazon. Not fancy. Just press record and walk away. I hit record at 7:03 p.m., left the house at 7:05. Sat in my truck a few blocks away with the live camera feed open on my phone. I watched the porch light flicker on. Mark showed up at 7:26. They stayed in the kitchen, then moved to the couch. I let the recorder roll until just after 10. Then I came back, quiet as ever, and grabbed my jacket like I forgot it. Next morning, I played the file. Muffled voices at first. Laughter. Low, intimate tones. But then I heard his voice say something that stuck in my head like a nail. He said, he doesn't suspect a thing. That was it. One sentence. 7 words. But it told me everything I needed to know. Because up until then, part of me still hoped I was wrong. That maybe it was emotional. Maybe they hadn't crossed that final line. Maybe this whole thing was just some weird, midlife identity crisis. But now I knew. They weren't just lying. They were smug about it. Playing house in my house, under my roof. So I did something small, just to remind them the game had changed. I left a note on the bathroom mirror in Claire's lipstick, the one she always kept in her purse. Just 2 words. I know. Didn't sign it. Didn't say anything. I just waited. And for the first time in weeks. Claire looked nervous. The lipstick message rattled her more than I expected. It wasn't fear exactly, it was uncertainty. That hesitation people have when they suddenly realize the person they've been underestimating isn't asleep at the wheel after all. She didn't say a word about it. Just wiped the mirror clean and went on with her day like nothing happened. But I saw it. The way her hand trembled just slightly when she stirred her coffee. The way she kept checking her phone, probably waiting for a follow-up that never came. That was the game now. Let her imagination do the work. Because I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to accuse. The weight of what she'd done was starting to hang around her neck all on its own. And guilt, when it hits weird. Not loud. Not explosive. Quiet. Creeping. She started acting different. Polite. Overly polite. Asking how my day was. Offering to cook dinner again. Touching my shoulder as she passed, like we were still something. But it was hollow. All of it. It wasn't affection, it was management. She was trying to handle me. Keep me calm. Keep the illusion going long enough to figure out what I knew and how much of it could hurt her. Mark, meanwhile, went ghost. No car. No visits. No random phone calls on speaker while she cooked dinner. He'd either caught wind of the shift or she told him to back off while she did damage control. Too late. I already had what I needed. I wasn't looking for a confession. I wasn't planning a confrontation. I was preparing for a clean exit. One where I got to keep what mattered, the house, my name, my self-respect. And where they got to keep each other. Rotting in the mess they made. It took her 3 days to finally break. She walked into the kitchen while I was eating breakfast, holding her coffee like a prop. The kind of casual performance you put on when your insides are screaming but you're trying to act normal. She asked me how I slept. I said, fine. She nodded. Too quickly. Stared into her mug like it held the answers. Then she said she'd been thinking about us. That we hadn't really talked lately. that maybe we should. I just looked at her. Let her sit in the awkward silence. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, trying to decide whether to confess or keep bluffing, wondering how much I knew, wondering if I had evidence or if I was bluffing her. She wanted me to say something. Anything. Instead, I stood up, rinsed my plate, and left for work like it was just another Tuesday. Because here's the thing. When someone breaks something you built with your own two hands, your marriage, your trust, your damn sense of safety, they don't get the luxury of your words. They get your silence. They get your distance. And eventually, they get your absence. I knew Claire wasn't sleeping well. I'd hear her pacing some nights. She started leaving lights on, checking the door locks more than usual. The guilt was setting in, and without the fantasy of Mark to distract her, now that he was conveniently busy, she had no one to hide behind. The house got quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Uneasy quiet. Like a storm was hanging just offshore, and everyone was pretending the sky was still blue. That's when I knew it was almost time. Not for revenge. For closure. On my terms. It was Thursday, and I wasn't supposed to be home. At least, that's what she thought. I left my truck at the shop and walked the long way home, through the trees behind our neighborhood. Old trails from when we used to take evening walks, back before everything felt like a performance. I knew every creak in the back steps, every branch that snapped under the wrong shoe. I slipped in through the laundry room. Quiet. Not sneaking, just listening. The house was still. Too still. And then I heard her voice, low and urgent, coming from the kitchen. I paused in the hallway, heart steady, ears sharp. She was on the phone. He hasn't said anything, she whispered, just loud enough to carry. I don't know if he knows, but something's different. He's cold. Like, calculated. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I'm telling you, Mark, if he finds out. She stopped. Maybe she sensed me. Maybe the silence between us had finally gotten too loud to ignore. I stepped into the hallway and caught her eye. She froze. Phone still in her hand, mouth half open, like the truth had been yanked right out of her mid-sentence. She didn't even pretend it was anyone else on the line. She just stared at me like a student caught cheating mid-exam. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. The silence between us had been loaded for weeks, but this was the moment it detonated. Not with yelling or a dramatic fight. Just that look. That shared recognition that the game was over, and she'd lost track of the score a long time ago. She swallowed hard, finally pressing the phone to her side like it might turn invisible. I just tilted my head, raised one eyebrow, not accusing, not surprised, just done. Then I turned around and walked out the front door. That was the real moment of truth. Not when I caught her lying. Not even when she said his name out loud. It was when she saw in my face that I wasn't broken. That I wasn't coming to beg or fight or plead for answers. I was finished. The part of me that needed closure had already gotten it, not from her words, but from her panic. She'd never looked at me that way before. Not even when we fought in the early days. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't regret. It was fear. And fear tells the truth. After that day, things in the house got eerily polite. Not better, just quieter. Like we were two coworkers waiting out the final 2 weeks of a job we both hated but couldn't quit just yet. Claire tiptoed around me. She'd start sentences and not finish them. Acted like maybe, just maybe, if she cooked dinner again or wore that old sweater I used to like, I'd forget what I knew. That I'd slide back into pretending like nothing ever happened. But I was already gone. Not physically, not yet. But mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'd packed up weeks ago. I started moving money. Nothing illegal. Just smart. Shifted half our savings into a separate account with only my name on it. Pulled copies of our marriage certificate, property documents, and anything that might come in handy when this thing went legal. I also made a list. Simple stuff. What was mine? What was hers? What I'd take? What I'd leave behind? I wasn't going to fight over the blender or the couch. Let her keep the wine glasses and the framed vacation photos. Let her keep the whole memory of who we used to be, because I didn't want it anymore. What I did want was my self-respect. And maybe the house. Still debating that. Mark didn't come back. Coward disappeared the second things got messy. No surprise there. That's how guys like him operate, all charm when it's easy, but nowhere to be found when the lights come on and the consequences show up. One night, I caught her crying in the bathroom. Door half closed, lights off. It wasn't loud. Just this small, broken sound, like someone trying to hold it all in but springing leaks anyway. I didn't say anything. Not out of cruelty. Just because I'd already said everything I needed to say by not saying anything at all. Let her cry. Let her miss me. Let her finally sit in the mess she made. I had my own work to do, not on her, not on him, but on me. And when the time came to leave, I wanted to walk out clean. No shouting. No revenge. Just the sound of the door closing behind me. The night I left, I didn't pack much. Just a duffel bag with clothes, a folder with documents, and my tools. That was it. No dramatic speech. No note on the counter. I figured if she needed a goodbye, she could replay all the chances I gave her not to ruin this. She was asleep when I left. Or pretending to be. Either way, I didn't check. I closed the door quiet behind me. Locked it out of habit. One last act of care for a house that didn't feel like mine anymore. Funny thing is, it wasn't the betrayal that broke me. Not really. It was what came after, the lies, the gaslighting, the smugness. The way she looked at me like I was a fool, right up until I wasn't. Mark never showed his face. Maybe he never will. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I could waste energy wondering why her, why him, why now, but I've learned there's no satisfying answer to betrayal. Just the echo of it. Sometimes I catch myself remembering good moments. A road trip we took through the mountains. The way she used to hum while brushing her hair. How she once surprised me with a birthday gift I didn't know I wanted. I miss those versions of us. But I've accepted that they're gone. And maybe they never really existed the way I thought they did. Right now, I'm staying with a buddy from work. Nothing fancy. Just a spare room and a fridge full of beer. He doesn't ask questions. Just tosses me the remote and lets me be. Sometimes that's all a guy needs. Space, silence, and a place to breathe. I haven't decided what comes next. I might keep the house. Might sell it. Might disappear for a while. There's some comfort in not knowing. No pressure to fix everything. Just permission to be. All I know is, I didn't burn it down. I didn't scream. I didn't lose myself. I walked away with the one thing they couldn't fake or steal. Clarity.